In the dense, fog-choked forests of Washington's Olympic Peninsula, where the Hoh rainforest swallows light and sound, a group of 4 hikers, Mark, Lena, Travis, and Sarah, set out in October 2023 for a weekend trek. They were seasoned, equipped with maps, GPS, and enough supplies for 3 days. The plan was simple: follow the Hoh River Trail, camp at Blue Glacier, and return. But what they encountered would haunt them forever. On the second night, camped near a moss-draped clearing, the group sat around a fire, the air heavy with damp earth and pine. Around 11 p.m., Travis froze mid-sentence, his eyes fixed on the tree-line. A low, guttural moan, half animal, half human, rolled through the darkness. The sound wasn't like anything they'd heard. Not bear, not elk, not coyote. It vibrated in their chests, primal and wrong. Sarah whispered, "What the hell was that?" But no one answered. The fire crackled, and then came the snapping of branches, deliberate and heavy, circling their camp. Mark, the skeptic, grabbed a flashlight and scanned the trees. The beam caught nothing but shadows and dripping ferns. Then Lena gasped, pointing to the ground just beyond the firelight. Footprints, massive, at least 16 inches long, with deep impressions of 5 toes, pressed into the mud. They hadn't been there an hour ago. Travis, shaking, muttered, "This is a joke, right?" But the prints trailed off into the dark, fresh and undisturbed. The group huddled closer, their breath visible in the cold. The moans returned, louder, joined by a stench like rotting meat and wet fur. Sarah clutched her knife, whispering about stories she'd read on X, sightings of a creature in these woods, taller than a man, covered in matted hair. Mark scoffed, insisting it was a prank, but his voice cracked. Then something massive moved in the trees, snapping a branch as thick as a man's arm. The sound echoed like a gunshot. They didn't sleep. At dawn, they packed and fled, abandoning half their gear. As they hurried down the trail, Lena glanced back and screamed. There, in the mist, stood a figure, over 8 feet tall, broad as 2 men, its body covered in dark, shaggy hair. Its eyes, reflective and unblinking, locked onto hers. It didn't chase, didn't move. It just watched, its silhouette burned into her mind. They reached the ranger station by noon, babbling about what they'd seen. The ranger, an older man with weathered hands, listened quietly. He didn't laugh or dismiss them. Instead, he pulled out a worn logbook and showed them entries from 1987, 1994, 2008. Other hikers, hunters, locals, all reporting the same thing. A towering creature, moans in the night, footprints too large to explain. "You're not the first," he said, "and you won't be the last." The group never returned to the Hoh. Sarah posted their story on X, including blurry photos of the footprints, hoping for answers. Most responses mocked them, but a few users, hunters and loggers from the Pacific Northwest, shared similar tales, some too recent for comfort. One anonymous user wrote, "It's real. I saw it in 21. It doesn't want you dead. It just wants you gone." To this day, Lena can't sleep without checking her windows. Travis burned his hiking boots. Mark still denies it, but he flinches at loud noises. Sarah keeps the ranger's words taped to her desk. "You saw something old, something that's been here longer than us. Leave it be." In the Hoh, the forest stays silent, but the footprints remain, pressed deep into the earth, waiting for the next soul to wander too far. In November 2024, 3 friends, Claire, Ethan, and Mia, rented a remote log house nestled in Washington's Hoh rainforest for a quiet weekend retreat. The cabin, a weathered cedar structure built in the 1970s, sat alone in a clearing, surrounded by towering firs and ferns that seemed to swallow sound. They'd found it on a local forum, praised for its solitude, but with odd ex-post warning, "Don't stay after dark." Claire, a photographer, wanted shots of the misty forest. Ethan, a history buff, was curious about the area's folklore. Mia, the cautious one, brought a satellite phone just in case. None of them were prepared for what waited in the trees. The first day was peaceful. They hiked, cooked venison stew, and laughed by the wood stove, its glow casting shadows on the log walls. But as night fell, the forest changed. Around 10 p.m., a low, guttural moan echoed outside. Not a bear's growl or an elk's bugle, but something raw, almost human, that made the hair on their necks stand up. Ethan, trying to lighten the mood, joked about Bigfoot, but Mia's face paled. She'd seen an ex-post from a hunter in 2022 claiming a thing had circled his camp nearby, leaving footprints too big to be human. Claire stepped onto the porch, her flashlight cutting through the fog. The beam caught something in the mud near the woodpile. A footprint, 17 inches long, with 5 deep, splayed toes. It hadn't been there at dusk. She called the others, her voice shaking. Ethan knelt, measuring the print with his hand. It dwarfed it. Mia whispered, "There's another." A trail of prints circled the cabin, fresh and deliberate, as if something had paced around them while they ate. They locked the door, barricaded it with a chair, and dimmed the lantern. The moans grew louder, joined by a stench like wet fur and decay that seeped through the cracks. Then came the knocks, slow, heavy thuds on the cabin's north wall, each one rattling the windows. Ethan grabbed a poker from the fireplace, muttering, "It's just some jerk messing with us." But the knocks moved, circling to the east wall, then the south, too fast for a prankster. Mia clutched the satellite phone, but the signal was dead, the screen flashing "no service" despite working earlier. At 1 a.m., the power flickered out, plunging the cabin into darkness. The wood stove's embers glowed faintly, outlining their terrified faces. Claire peeked through a window, her breath fogging the glass. In the moonlight, she saw it, a silhouette, over 8 feet tall, broad and shaggy, standing just beyond the clearing. Its eyes glinted, reflective like a predator's, staring directly at her. She stumbled back, gasping, "It's here." The thing didn't move, but its presence felt like a weight, pressing against the cabin's walls. The knocking stopped, replaced by a scraping sound, like claws dragging across the logs. Mia sobbed quietly, clutching a kitchen knife. Ethan whispered, "Stay calm," but his hands trembled. Claire noticed something worse. The footprints outside led to the cellar door beneath the cabin. Had it been locked? They hadn't checked. A faint thump came from below, then another, as if something heavy moved in the crawlspace. The floorboards creaked above the cellar, though no one in the room had moved. Dawn broke at 6 a.m., gray and cold. The noises stopped, and the stench faded. They waited, hearts pounding, until sunlight pierced the trees. When they opened the door, the footprints were gone, washed away by rain or something else. But the cellar door was ajar, its lock bent inward. Inside, they found scratches on the beams, deep, jag marks too high for a bear. They grabbed their bags and fled, driving 2 hours to the nearest ranger station. The ranger, a grizzled woman named Ellen, listened without surprise. She showed them a binder of reports. 1991, a family heard moans near the same cabin. 2003, a logger saw a tall thing, watching him. 2019, hikers found prints matching theirs. "It's been here forever," Ellen said. "It doesn't hurt you unless you stay too long." She pointed to an ex-post pinned to the wall, dated 2023. "Saw it by the old log house. It knows you're there." Claire never returned to the hoe. She deleted her forest photos, unable to look at them. Ethan burned his notes on local legends, his skepticism shattered. Mia keeps the satellite phone charged, though she hasn't camped since. They don't talk about it, but Claire sometimes wakes at night, hearing knocks in her dreams. On X, a new post appeared weeks later from an anonymous user. "Rented the hoe cabin. Something scratched the walls. Left footprints. Don't stay." In the rainforest, the log house stands empty, its windows dark, waiting for the next guests to hear the moans in the night. In January 2025, four friends, Nate, Julia, Owen, and Rachel, set out for a winter camping trip in Washington's North Cascades, a rugged range where snow buries trails and silence reigns. They were experienced backcountry campers, drawn to the challenge of a 3-day trek near Glacier Peak. Armed with snowshoes, a sturdy tent, and a propane heater, they planned to camp in a sheltered valley, photograph the icy peaks, and test their grit. Ex-posts from local hikers had warned of weird noises in the area, but Nate, the group's leader, dismissed them as bear calls. By their second night, they'd wish they'd listened. The first day was grueling but exhilarating. They trudged through knee-deep snow, their breath clouding in the sub-zero air, and pitched their tent in a clearing ringed by snow-laden pines. The valley felt like another world, cut off by a looming blizzard forecast for the next day. As dusk fell, they huddled around a small fire, sipping instant coffee and joking about frostbite. Around 9 p.m., the wind died, and an unnatural stillness settled. Then came the howl, a deep, guttural wail that wasn't wolf or wind, echoing off the peaks. It vibrated in their chests, raw and wrong. Rachel, the quiet one, whispered, "That's not normal." Owen, scrolling offline posts he'd saved, found one from 2023. Heard screams near Glacier Peak. Found tracks. Not human. Julia, the skeptic, grabbed a headlamp and scanned the snow beyond the firelight. Her beam caught something. A footprint, 18 inches long, pressed deep into the powder. It had 5 toes, splayed and clawed, unlike any bear or cougar. More prints trailed into the trees, each step wider than a man's stride. Nate tried to laugh it off, saying, "Someone's screwing with us," but his voice shook. The prints hadn't been there an hour ago, and no other campers were within miles. The group stomped out the fire and retreated to the tent, zipping it tight. Inside, the heater's hum couldn't mask the sounds. Low moans circled the clearing, closer now, accompanied by a stench like rotting meat and damp fur that pierced the canvas. Owen clutched a hatchet, whispering about a 2019 post where a skier saw a tall thing watching from the ridge. Then came the crunch, heavy, deliberate footsteps in the snow, circling the tent. The walls shook as something brushed against them, bending the poles. Rachel stifled a sob, her flashlight trembling on the tent floor. Nate hissed, "Stay quiet," but the footsteps stopped right outside. A shadow loomed against the tent, massive and misshapen, its outline visible through the fabric. It stood there, silent, as if listening. At midnight, the blizzard hit, roaring through the valley. The moans stopped, but the stench lingered, and the group didn't sleep. Julia peeked through the tent flap, her headlamp cutting through swirling snow. In the beam, she saw it, a figure, over 9 feet tall, shaggy and broad, standing at the treeling. Its eyes glowed reflective red, unblinking, locked on her. She gasped, slamming the flap shut. "It's out there," she whispered. The thing didn't approach, but its presence felt like a vice, squeezing the air from the tent. Owen swore he heard a low growl, almost words, beneath the wind's howl. By dawn, the blizzard buried the clearing in 2 feet of fresh snow. The group emerged, shaking, to find the footprints gone, erased by the storm. But the tent's side had deep scratches, like claws had raked the nylon, and a nearby pine bore gashes 8 feet up, too high for a bear. They packed in minutes, abandoning the heater, and snow showed out, the valley's silence heavier than ever. At the ranger station, a weathered man named Carl listened, unsurprised. He pulled out a logbook. 1985, a climber heard whales. 2007, hunters found oversized tracks. 2022, a snowshoer saw red eyes in a storm. "It's old," Carl said, "older than these mountains. It doesn't want you here." Nate burned his snowshoes. Julia deleted her photos, unable to face the dark shapes in the backgrounds. Owen stopped camping, haunted by the growls, almost words. Rachel posted their story on X, with a blurry shot of the scratched tent. Most users scoffed, but a few, locals, guides, replied with their own tales, some from winter 2024, describing the same whales and tracks. One anonymous post chilled her. "Saw it in the Cascades last year. It follows you. Check your windows." Now, Rachel wakes to every creak, and Julia swears she smells that stench in her dreams. In the North Cascades, the snow falls thick, hiding footprints that never truly vanish.